Hi everybody, welcome to Law Hero, my channel where I try and demyth, debunk as much as I can about the legal profession and studying, becoming a solicitor, lawyer. Doesn't really matter because I'm international. I look after people who are in the US, in the Middle East, in other European countries who want to qualify in Ireland, and also trainees who want to get a training contract. And one of the questions I get a lot is, should I do an LLM? Now, I have an LLM in finance, which is a little bit different to a regular LLM, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do one. So yeah, I'm going to go through it in this video, whether you should do one or not. So I have made a list on my phone as to whether you should do an LLM. And the first thing I've written down is that you should be committed to law. And that is because LLM is damn expensive. You can do cheaper ones, for example, in the Netherlands. But other than that, you're talking anywhere around 10,000 euros or 20,000 euros. And if you're in the US, it could be over 50,000. So yeah, that's the money and the commitment side. And then there's the time. So you're talking about a year, and that's for the, in the university studying. It's normally 2 semesters, but actually it takes much longer than that. And especially if you need an extension on your thesis, which I did because I was doing professional exams to get into the Irish profession. The whole thing took me a year to study and then exactly a year to write the thesis, which was worth it, but it's a long time. It's a long time before you get that piece of paper, so maybe think about that. So what is it exactly? So an LLM stands for Legum Magister. It's like Latin. It means you're a master of laws. Justice master. That's what I like to think of myself, a master. It's basically a step up from your LLB, your JD, your BCL, your undergraduate law degree. And it's essentially deeper study into one area of law. It's more niche and there's a higher academic standard required because you're gone from undergrad to postgrad. When I say niche area, I mean, like, for example, it could be finance law, which is something you don't study at undergraduate level, or it could be international human rights law. You can also do a general master where you, for example, focus on areas of commercial law, or you can do IPIT. They're like the general ones people normally go into. Some people do environmental law if you're into that. Or I think there's like one in shipping law in Cork now, which is brilliant. As I said, the academic standard is higher, so it will be accepted that you've already done some academic research, and based on that, your reasoning should be more honed. You should be well versed in legal reasoning, the process of induction, deduction. It'll be more than likely assumed that you understand legal philosophy, especially if you come from a European background. You'll always have done some kind of jurisprudence in your undergrad, but that's not to say it's necessary because some people don't come from a legal background when they do an LLM. I'll talk about that more later. So yeah, that's the next question. Do you need an undergraduate degree or not for the LLM? And the question is yes, you do, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in law. It could be, for example, a commerce degree or an accounting degree. Some of the people I studied with on my LLM, they were from business backgrounds and they wanted to get into law, so they did the LLM. Yeah, when do you do it? Usually, as I said, people do it after an undergraduate degree, although some people come back as mature students and do it. But generally, you see people do it after in Germany, after the Zweite Staatsexamen, in Ireland, after the LLB or BCL, Same in the UK, or in the US to do it after their JD. It's not necessary to have an LLM to become a lawyer. That's the other thing. It's just for people who want to specialise in that area, or they want to go down the teaching profession. You could go from an undergraduate to a doctorate, but that's rare. I don't know anybody who's done that actually. Let me know if you know somebody who's done that. But the LLM is kind of like the halfway house between the two. It's a chance to try out legal research for a year and also to deepen your knowledge, because it's a big jump from an undergrad to a doctorate without having that in between thesis writing experience. So it's more unlikely. And then I've seen as well a trend. So because there's so many, for example, because there's so many people in Germany who qualify as solicitors and, well, as lawyers over there, and they want to get into the big magic circle law firms in Germany, how they are differentiated is normally on their Zweite Staatsexamen result and whether they have an LLM in an English-speaking country. So, and that's, I've seen that as well for French. French and Germans come over here to Dublin to do the LLM, or you'd have, we'll say, Dutch, French, other Europeans go to the US, but Europeans who are not Irish, I think, don't tend to go to the US because the fees are just so massive in the US compared to the rest of Europe. So what you'll have is a lot of the Asians go to the US to do the LLM because a lot of the time they can afford the fees over there, whereas for the likes of us in Ireland, we would either go to other European countries because it's more accessible and it's cheaper, like I did. I went to Germany, or we'll get a grant or a scholarship to go to the US and do an LLM, if there's like a Fulbright scholarship, for example. So yeah, that's kind of roughly what people do depending on where you come from. And a lot of people do it as well to boost their English skills, which is something you need if you are coming from a non-English speaking country and you want to boost your legal skill. From a traineeship perspective, and that's kind of like an Ireland-England thing, also Germany, France, it does give you a greater depth of legal knowledge, which is always very positive. So obviously we have a worldwide distinction between common law and civil law, and even though when you do a master's the topics are very broad and general, they cannot help but be influenced by the country in which they're being taught, and I'll explain. So for example, on my LLM I did international comparative company law, and the 3 jurisdictions we compared was the US, Germany and the UK. And obviously there's 2 common law jurisdictions and 1 civil law jurisdiction, which is kind of difficult to compare. It's easy to compare the UK and the US company law because of the common law thing and the rules which come from judge-made precedent. But when you're comparing German company law to UK company law, there's so many gaping differences. But just be wary, we'll say, if you go to the Netherlands or if you go to France, you are going to be, it's not going to be purely international, you are going to be influenced by the jurisdiction you're studying in. So yeah, I think that's everything really. At the end of the day, an LLM is completely your own choice. Don't feel pressured by the market to get one. For me personally, I still have very mixed feelings. There are some days I think, why did I do this, and suffer the financial burden of it, and other days I think, wow, if I hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have known this and I wouldn't have met this great person, and you know, I wouldn't feel as competent in the workplace because I work in finance now, and a lot of what I did on that LLM is actually very applicable. So yeah, I suppose all in all for me it was great. The thesis, that really affected my mental health. I'll be very, very honest about that. It was extremely time consuming. Now I did pick a very obscure topic, so that's my own, but I think if you want to be a good researcher, you have to do that. So yeah, be prepared for the thesis. I would say exams are okay. I mean, if you've done undergrad exams, you can step up to an LL.M exam, but the thesis is the thing I would warn you about. Make sure you have the time and the headspace to do such a massive research project, because that's what it is, and it is very time consuming. And if you're not academically inclined, I question whether you do any of it really.
Yeah, that is. Sorry, I had to switch because it was too loud. I live in a basement and I live like below people, and no matter how much I try, it's still very, very loud. So yeah, that's it. Please subscribe, because when you subscribe, I know you like it. You like what I'm doing, but I like doing it anyway. So, yeah, thank you. And there's more law stuff to come. So, yeah. Well, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.